What's up, guys? Welcome to the second take. I'm Zach.
And I'm Jonah.
And we are here for the last part of our NFL preview. We have the NFC North and the NFC East, and we're going to kind of breeze through the North just because, obviously, being a Cowboys and Giants fans, the East is a lot more important to us. And as you know, the East got some news yesterday that we'll get to in a little bit. But we're going to kick it off with the Chicago Bears, the NFC North.
Yeah, so the Bears are a team that I think a lot of years I'm higher on than other people because I wouldn't say necessarily that I'm drinking the Jay Cutler Kool-Aid, but I am more than other people are, I suppose, which certainly you could find fault with that if you wanted. But the Bears were not good last year, but I think up and down their roster, they're a good bit better than last year. I don't think this is a great team still. I certainly don't have them as a playoff team, but I think you can point to a lot of places where they improved from last year. Certainly on their defense, they had huge problems at linebacker last year, and they went out and added Jarrell Freeman and Danny Trevathan, two solid linebackers. Their defensive line was solid last year and should be solid again. Their secondary is still going to be causing problems. I'm not totally sold on how good Tracy Porter is at this point in his career, and their safeties have been a disaster for probably the last 5 or 6 years straight. But they are getting a season out of Kevin White this year, who I think could, hopefully, yeah. Who I think if he's healthy enough to play could add similarly to how Kelvin Benjamin could improve the Panthers' offense, like just adding another dimension that they didn't really have last year. They were throwing pretty much exclusively to Alshon Jeffrey last year in terms of the wide receiver position. So I think you could point to them being better on both offense and defense. Obviously, it all depends on Jay Cutler. I don't think people sort of treat it as like Jay Cutler's a wild card. He can be great or he can be terrible. I think sort of the opposite. I think he just kind of is what he is. He's a mediocre quarterback who's going to have good games and bad games. He's kind of like Eli Manning, but worse, I think, just in that he can have some really good games and some really bad ones, and you're just going to kind of take your lumps with that. But, yeah, I think the Bears are going to be certainly better than last year, but not some great team.
Yeah, thanks for clarifying your Eli statement, because I was about ready to jump through the phone right there. But
worse.
Yeah, so I like what you said about Kevin White and Kelvin Benjamin, that kind of comparison there. They're getting closer to the Alshon Jeffrey, Brandon Marshall pairing. Obviously, Kevin White, at least not yet, is up to Brandon Marshall's caliber, but he's still pretty damn good. They lost Martellus Bennett, which is a little scary for me just because he was a pretty solid possession receiver, and Jay Cutler could use something like that. Zach Miller is a good tight end, though, so I guess, it's a little bit of a downgrade, but still not too bad. So their offense to me is okay. Obviously, no more Matt Forte, which puts a little more pressure on Jay Cutler. And I think he is what he is, just like Jonah said. But the thing that scares me is, like, he obviously cares. You can tell that by the way he reacts to things. But it's almost like it's like an arrogant cockiness about him that he kind of shouldn't have, because I don't think he's good enough to have that. So, like, he thinks he's the best, and then he plays terrible, and everyone's all over him, and then he, like, just goes into a little hole. So I don't really like that about him. But I actually, looking at this, I think he might be the worst quarterback in the division. But
I'm not gonna totally disagree with that.
Yeah, you obviously have Aaron Rodgers in there, so that's kind of unfair. But the other two are closer to Jay Cutler. But defensively, I love Kyle Fuller more than anyone, and I know Jonah loves him too. So that's a great start to the secondary, but that's about all they got. I don't really like the D-line that much. Bears always have good linebackers. That's just how they are. But yeah, I don't think there's a lot to love on this defense. And playing in that division where the Packers can drop 50 on you whenever they care to, the Lions could be a high-scoring team with Stafford, and the Vikings are kind of the oddball. They can score a lot, or they can just ground and pound and beat you like 13-10 or something. But yeah, I don't really like a lot about this Bears defense, so I have them pretty low. I have them at 4-12.
Yeah, I have the Bears quite a bit higher than you do. I I like a lot of pieces on their defense. They did draft Leonard Floyd, who's a guy who could sort of revitalize their pass rush. They signed Akeem Hicks, who's a guy I like a lot. In terms of the running game, Forsey was getting older. I don't think it'll be a huge loss. They did draft Jordan Howard out of Indiana, who's a guy I like a lot, and I think you like him too.
Yep.
Right. So I have the Bears. I have the Bears at 8-8. I think their schedule is relatively easy. They get the AFC South just like every other team in the division, but their sort of extra games are against San Francisco and Tampa Bay, which I think is definitely manageable. So, I'm going to have them at 8-8, 500. I don't see them challenging for a playoff spot, but I think they'll be pretty average.
Yeah, and I could easily see them winning like 6 games or something. I'm just kind of taking the wait and see approach just because I don't know what exactly Kevin White will bring to the offense, and I'm nervous about the running game. So, I mean, I'm taking the Jonah approach of the Jaguars and Raiders, even though the Bears aren't that good and probably won't be that good, but I could easily see them winning 6 games. So we're going to move on to the Lions now. Obviously, a huge loss this year in Calvin Johnson, who chose to retire. They did add Anquan Boldin and Marvin Jones. No way in hell that compares to Calvin Johnson, not even close, but still, you had a couple pieces, which is pretty huge for Stafford. Golden Tate played pretty well last year, believe it or not. So Jonah doesn't like him because he ruins his fantasy team frequently, but he still held his own a little bit.
Maybe he'll finally catch some touchdowns this year.
No, he just catches 10-yard passes and gets tackled. It's all right.
Honestly.
He's also 5'9", so you can't really throw it to him in the end zone, Jonah.
Right, he's not a red zone guy.
Yeah. But I do like the running backs. I'm a big Amir Abdullah fan. Hopefully he can hold onto the ball a little bit better than last year, but I think he will be good at some point. Defensively, I think they have a really good defensive line. Haloti Ngata and Ziggy Ansah is going to lead the league in sacks this year, in my opinion. Drafted Ashawn Robinson, who I think is a nice fit next to Ngata in the middle. Their linebackers are pretty good. Kyle Vanoy, DeAndre Levy, and Whitehead, those guys can play pretty well. But kind of like the Bears, the secondary is really bad. I mean, they have a couple athletic players that can make some plays now and again, but nothing that will give you confidence that that secondary can hold up. And I mean, if Ziggy Ansah can get to the pass rusher or can get to the quarterback like I think he can, then it might not be that big of a deal. But I still don't think this team is that great just because they're never that great. I mean, for the last 5 years, I was kind of expecting the Lions to take off with Stafford and Calvin Johnson, and it never happened. And now you lose Calvin Johnson, and it's just Matt Stafford. So I'm not that high on the Lions. I do think they'll be okay. I think they'll be a little bit better than the Bears, but I'm still not that high on them.
Yeah, I'm not super high on the Lions either. I think their defense is pretty underrated. I like Glover Quinn. I like Darius Slay. I like DeAndre Levy and Ziggy Ansah, Haloti Ngata. There's a lot of pieces on the defense, and I think that's not what people really expect from the Lions. They've been a very offense-first team in the time that they've been decent lately. But I worry a lot about how Stafford's going to play without Calvin Johnson because we've never seen him play without Calvin Johnson.
Right.
It hasn't exactly been an all-pro quarterback, even with, like, the best receiver in the last 5 years. So I'm not super optimistic about that. They're starting a rookie at left tackle, Taylor Decker, which could work out well, but you're going to see a lot of change having to be worked out with an inexperienced line. I think this team, I think they're sort of similar to the Bears in that there's some holes and some stud players, and you just have to kind of pick this together and make a prediction for this team. And so for the Lions, I'm going to have them at 7-9. I think this division is pretty solid all around. I don't think any of these teams are really terrible. They did draft star Michigan quarterback Jake Rudock in the 6th round, so if Matt Stafford doesn't work out, they can always I'm a Michigan fan for college football, as we'll probably be talking about during the college football season. But in all seriousness, I think this is a pretty decent team, but not going to set the world on fire. I'm going to have them at 7-9.
Yeah, I mean, they did just have Matt Prater make a 60-yard field goal last night. And speaking of Matt Prater, I'd probably start him over Jake Rudock, just saying. But I have them at 5-11. Kind of like how Jonah said in the AFC. I can't remember what league he was talking about, but he said that he needs to have a couple more bad teams. So I don't really have any bad teams this year. So here are my two bad teams with bad records, I guess. Yeah, so I have the Lions at 5-11. I think, I don't know, there's some holes there, and they're getting older also. So I think the Lions are pretty close to having to kind of restart the engine after they failed to do anything great with a good roster a couple years ago. Obviously, Ziggy Ansah is a huge piece and is going to be really good for a long time, and Stafford's probably got another 8 to 10 years in them, so they got a chance. But let's get into the meat of the division, and we'll start with the Minnesota Vikings.
Yeah, so the Vikings are a team that I liked a lot going into last year. I predicted them to make the playoffs. I didn't expect they would win the division, which they did. But this was a team that surprised a lot of people last year. But if you look up and down their roster, there's a lot of talent, and they're not going to be sneaking up on anybody this year. I think you can go through a lot of things on this roster, especially if you look at the defense, with how much raw talent there is on this defense. They got Harrison Smith is one of the best safeties in the league. They got Chad Greenway and Anthony Barr outside linebacker. Chad Greenway's still chugging. He was their first round pick in 06 and is still on the Vikings, which is not a thing you see a lot these days. They have a solid defensive line. Linval Joseph, the former Giant, a defensive tackle. Emerson Griffin and Brian Robeson are good edge rushers. Their defense played great last year. Adrian Peterson is still playing really well, and he's still around. You could make the argument that their offense, in terms of scheme, might be better off without him sometimes, which is a little bit counterintuitive with how good Adrian Peterson is. But they've added to this offense. Like, they signed Andre Smith to play right tackle. They drafted Laquan Treadwell in the first round as a receiver. And basically what all this is coming to is they're trying to make life easier for Teddy Bridgewater. And we're going to see what kind of quarterback he is this year, I think, because last year we kind of saw him as sort of like an Alex Smith type, like just sort of a check down guy, which, you know, you can win a bunch of games with a quarterback like that. And we've even seen teams win Super Bowls with quarterbacks like that. So it's not a knock on Teddy Bridgewater. But this team doesn't quite have the talent around him that, like, the Brad Johnson Buccaneers did, you know? So they're going to need Bridgewater to be more effective than he was last year if they want to really be a great team in the future. Now, I do still think this team is good. I think they're going to be good. But I think if they want to take the next step, it really hinges on whether Bridgewater can also take that next step as a quarterback.
Yeah, I think arguably this is the best offense that Bridgewater's had around him since he's been on the Vikings. I mean, you know how much I like Treadwell from the draft. So adding him to Stephon Diggs, shout out Maryland, and an already good receiving core. I mean, the receivers are okay, but adding Laquan Treadwell to that group makes them a lot better. Bridgewater, I don't know if I like what the Vikings are doing or if I hate what the Vikings are doing with him. I don't know if any of you watched him in college, but he was the most accurate quarterback. He threw for the most yards, most touchdowns. The dude can throw the football. Like, he's a really, really good quarterback in terms of passing. And they've really kind of held the reins on Bridgewater, and I think they're trying to slowly develop him and take one step at a time, which obviously is working out. They're getting better each year. But this is the year I think that they really could let go of those reins, just give him the Bridgewater and let him take him wherever he takes him, just because of the group of receivers he has, and obviously you have Adrian Peterson. So I'd like to see him throw it around a little bit more. But defensively, this team...
I agree. This is what I mean by the idea that Peterson might not actually be a good fit in this offense.
Right.
He's obviously not a guy you get rid of because of that. But yeah, like you were saying, I think they need to kind of give Bridgewater a big rein, and that probably means fewer carries for Peterson, which probably works out for everybody because Peterson's getting older. And when you have a running back who hits the stage, they tend to hit a wall sometimes. So if you can lessen Peterson's carries, just give them the carries when the team is in the lead, I think this team can be really good. I don't think they're going to fully do that yet this year, just because I think that they still feel like too much obligation to Peterson in some ways. But I think I don't think Peterson's going to be around too much longer, and I think it might be better, if not for the team, at least for Teddy Bridgewater's development, if Peterson's not here anymore soon.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Adrian Peterson's an all-pro running back and probably the best we have in the league, so you got to give him the ball, and they feel obligated to do so. But I think it's definitely hampered Bridgewater in a way, because obviously he doesn't get to use the full extent of the offense, and I could easily see this being one of the things where, like, Peterson retires and then Bridgewater just has the worst year ever, just because he's never, like, been given the reins to the offense. He's never had to make throws to win games. They kind of put the ball in Peterson's hands, see what happens in the first quarter, and then if they need to start throwing it around a little bit, Bridgewater starts to move it. But I mean, I want to see this be Bridgewater's team a little bit more than it is. And I think that we're getting closer there. I think the Vikings kind of realize that they do have a good quarterback and that he's maturing and they're using him pretty well. So hopefully they take the next step there. But defensively, I think this team's really good. I think Anthony Barr is one of the best linebackers in the NFL. Like, secondary, Harrison Smith could be talked about forever. He's a superstar on the back end of the defense. And their front seven's really good. Jonah already talked about that. So defensively, I think this team is probably just as good, if not better. They got a little bit older, which could be a problem, but their young guys got older and more experienced too. And offensively, I think they're better. So I have the Vikings at 11-5.
Yeah, I have the Vikings at 10-6. I think they had some good luck with injuries last year, and just by virtue of the fact they'll probably have some more injuries this year, I'm gonna drop them down to 10-6. But I still think this is a playoff team. I think they'll get a wild card, and I think they'll probably be a better team than last year, even though I think their record will be a game worse.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. So that will move on to the Packers, who we both have as the division winners. So offensively, they have a healthy Jordy Nelson, which is huge for this offense. Last year was one of the worst years I've ever seen of Packers offensive-wise. I mean, Randall Cobb was terrible because he didn't have his partner in crime, Jordy Nelson. Eddie Lacy was fat, out of shape, and terrible. But now they have a thinner Eddie Lacy who looks really good. A healthy Jordy Nelson to go along with Randall Cobb, which will bring both of their games up. They found a good tight end in Rodgers last year. I mean, they're right back to their good offense that they've always had. And Aaron Rodgers is, I think, a little pissed off at how bad they've been for a couple of years. So I could easily see the Packers taking off this year. Defensively, they're the same kind of defense. Huge question, though, is whether or not Julius Peppers and Clay Matthews will be suspended for the alleged PED use. I'm going to say that they will be suspended, but only for like a game or two. Nothing that'll kill this team. Yeah, I think the Packers are a really good football team again. Aaron Rodgers is easily a top 5 quarterback, if not top 2. Don't get me started with Stephen A. Smith. I don't want to get into that role, but I really like this Packers team this year.
Yeah, I always have faith in the Packers. I mean, as long as Aaron Rodgers is the quarterback, I think he had like an uncharacteristic year for him last year. I think it's fair to say it was probably the worst year of his career since he's been a superstar quarterback. And you know, I don't think I think that's an exception rather than the new normal, because we've just seen so much of phenomenal Aaron Rodgers, which we still saw flashes of last year. It's not like he was bad last year. He was just probably a top 7 or 8 quarterback instead of a top 2 or 3 quarterback. So he was still a really good quarterback last year. He wasn't what we've typically expected from Aaron Rodgers, but I expect him to bounce back this year. He finally has the same offensive line as the previous year in front of him, which will probably help. He has Jordy Nelson back, as you mentioned, which is going to be a big help. Randall Cobb should be better just because A, Rodgers will be better, B, he has Jordy Nelson on the other side. So I have a lot of faith in this offense. A big problem has been their offensive line, but hopefully it'll gel this year, just because they're finally returning the same unit, and I think that would be really valuable not only for Rodgers but for the whole offense in general. The defense is where I'm a little more skeptical. They always seem to find answers at corner. So they have Sam Shields and Demarius Randall starting right now, but if you look a little farther down the depth chart, defensive back, there's questions, and if there's injuries, there could be problems. I don't love their defensive line really at all. It's difficult for me to see where they're going to get a pass rush, especially if Peppers and Matthews get suspended. The problem with the defense last year for me was that, like, Clay Matthews isn't an outside linebacker. Like, he does fine at the job because he's just a really good football player. But, like, the optimal solution for this team, well, I don't know, it's hard to say, because he's played some inside linebacker and some outside linebacker. The hope is that he can play outside linebacker in a dominant way, provide that pass rush, and they're hoping that by drafting Blake Martinez, that will help him do that. But, I don't know, we'll see with this defense.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really remember a Packers team where I love their defense. It's kind of just the offense is just that much better, that I think that they'll be good. It's like the Saints kind of thing. Just a great offense, shaky defense, and just hope your defense can hold up some games and outscore the other team frequently, which is why I have the Packers at 12-4, which would mean that they are winning the division, and then they would be my second place team in the whole NFC, just behind the Cardinals.
Yeah, I also have the Packers at 12-4. That would put them, for me, as the second seed in the NFC behind Carolina, with Arizona coming in right at third. It's going to be pretty tough at the top of the NFC this year.
Yeah, I mean, for Jonah and I, we have the Packers, Seahawks, Cardinals, and Panthers basically all vying for those top two spots, and we really wouldn't be shocked to see any of those four teams in the top two spots.
Yeah, I mean, any of those teams, I could definitely see in the Super Bowl, and I think the winner of the NFC Championship game this year is probably going to be the Super Bowl favorite. So
Right. So you want to get to the good stuff?
Yeah, sure.
You want to start?
The moment we've been waiting for.
Yeah. You want to start with your... No, I'll start, actually. We got the Eagles. All right. So Jonah and I are going to have a really tough time because we're going to talk about the Eagles and the Redskins first. And obviously, being a Giants fan and Jonah being a Cowboys fan, it's extremely hard to talk about two teams we probably hate the most. So
yeah, we finally done like something here. We're going to strongly disagree a little later on, but let's enjoy this one.
So to start with the Eagles, there's not a lot to like, but you gotta. They beat the Giants twice a year, so I have to give them at least 2 wins. I don't know why, but they do. So offensively, last year they had a really hard time at the receiver position. And Jonah and I are pretty qualified to talk about the NFC East because we watch more games of the NFC East than literally anyone ever. We have to watch these teams play our teams twice a year, and we know. Yeah, like there's no choice. So last year they had a tough time at the receiver position. They drafted Nelson Aguilar thinking he'd be a really good receiver, and he was pretty bad. Actually, he graded out to be the worst receiver in the NFL last year, which is saying a lot because he has a lot of talent. Jordan Matthews is a freak. He's really good. He's athletic, but he still has some growing to do, I think. And then, you're running out like Josh Huff and other guys that aren't that great, but still. Riley Cooper doesn't count. So running back wise, they're still pretty set with Ryan Matthews. I know they lost DeMarco Murray, but he hasn't been good since he was in Dallas. So I think there's fine there. QB play is going to be a question mark. Obviously, does the team trust Sam Bradford? Can Sam Bradford be good? So on and so forth. I think he'll be okay. I think the Doug Peterson style of play will suit him pretty nicely. I also think he's obviously not as good of a game manager as Alex Smith, but he has a much better arm than Alex Smith, so you kind of give a little to get a little. But defensively, They got some questions also. I think Michael Kendricks is a superstar linebacker also. He reminds me so much of Anthony Barr. Like, they're one and the same in my mind. I think their D-line's okay. Vinny Curry, I think, is going to have a breakout year. But their corner position is really questionable. They got rid of the worst player in the NFL in Byron Maxwell, which really hurt me because I really liked him in Philly. But safety-wise, they're good. I mean, Malcolm Jenkins is a freak. He was huge for them last year. I think Eric Rowe, who they drafted 2 years ago, I think, out of Utah, I think he will, by the end of the year, be a starting cornerback for this team. I think he's pretty solid. But really everywhere else in the secondary is a question. The other corner positions, there's some room to be nervous there for Eagles fans. I think that this team is, let's see, I think it's some misfits, I guess I could say. There's good pieces, but they seem like they don't fit to the puzzle very well. Like the defense, there's a lot of good defensive players, but I feel like they don't have a good defense when you look at it like all in all. And same for the offense. Like, I mean, I like Sam Bradford more than some people do, but I still don't think their offense is that great. But yeah, I'll let Jonah take it from here.
Yeah, that's exactly how I feel about the Eagles, especially on the defense. I think it's kind of a result of too much Chip Kelly messing with the roster. And so you have a defense, like you said, that has a lot of pieces on it, but doesn't feel like a good defense. There's good players, like you mentioned. Michael Kendrick is great. Fletcher Cox is awesome.
Yep.
Like, hate having to face Fletcher Cox. I'm sure you even more because your offensive line is.
Oh, shut up about my offensive line. We'll get there. We'll get there.
But yeah, I think if you look at the secondary, especially, I think their secondary is pretty bad. They did get Rodney McLeod in the offseason, which is going to be a big addition, but I don't like their corners even a little. I know they got rid of Byron Maxwell, which sucks for us Cowboys and Giants fans. But they're replacing him with, it looks like they're going to replace him with Leos McKelvin as a starting corner, which I'm pretty excited about picking on him as well. So I don't really, that kind of softened the blow for me. They do have a lot of pass rushing talent. Vinny Curry, Connor Barwin, Brandon Graham as a third string pass rusher has been the best third string pass rusher in the league for like a long time. So there's definitely pieces on this defense. There's pieces on the offense too. I like the defense a little more than the offense though, because I, as you know, don't like Sam Bradford at all. I've never trusted him, even a little bit. People were saying like, oh, he'll be fine in this new situation with Chip Kelly. Like, he wasn't. I mean, maybe he'll be fine in the new situation. Like you said, there's some indication that in the Doug Peterson system, he could be a little bit better. But it seems like Doug Peterson is waiting for the first opportunity to throw his boy Chase Daniel in there. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see that if Bradford stumbles early. And I don't think that's going to be good for them if that happens. And I don't like their receiving core really either. Aguilar was not that good. They have Ruben Randall.
He's the worst player ever.
Who you can finally admit your true feelings about.
I didn't even like him on the Giants. Like, I literally, the day we didn't sign him was the happiest day of my career as a Giants fan.
Yeah. So
and that says a lot, because we only threw to Odell last year. Like, we had one receiver on the roster last year, and we still didn't throw it to Ruben Randall.
This is like the ultimate, the sum of the parts is going to be way more than the total.
Right.
Like, it's just not, like, I just don't see this team really fitting together well at all. They have enough talent that they're not going to be, like, 3-13. But, like, because there is a lot of talent on this team, there's no doubt about that. The Eagles always seem to have a lot of talent.
I can guarantee you they'll be at least 2-14, because I know their 2 wins are coming from New York. So they beat you once and they beat the Redskins once. They already got 4 wins right there.
Right, yeah, they can't be winless because they're always going to beat the Giants a couple times.
Exactly. God forbid we beat Philly one time in my life. But serious question.
Yeah, I'll always be playing that Deshaun Jackson.
Shut up. That was almost out of my head. We cut that punter literally the second he kicked that. Like, he didn't even get a chance to get to the sideline. His contract was already ripped. Matt freaking Dodge. I'll see him in my nightmares forever.
I know you will. I'll make sure you do.
But serious question: when was the last time that a team drafted a quarterback second and he's third on the depth chart?
Yeah, that's like a little bit odd to me too, because they traded like a whole draft to move up to second.
They essentially traded 11 starters that they could have gotten from the draft for a quarterback to put third.
Right, and you're saying that, and you like Carson Wentz significantly more than
Right, yeah, no, absolutely. I think Carson Wentz can be a good quarterback, but like I wouldn't trade up to second and then put him third on my depth chart. Maybe if I needed a quarterback desperately, I'd go get him, but like not if you have Sam Bradford and a solid backup in Chase Daniel.
If their plan was to roll with Sam Bradford and Chase Daniel this year, just wait till next year to draft a quarterback.
Exactly, like, there's good ones coming out. Like I think Deshaun Watson is going to be the best quarterback of all these drafts.
Right, and if you want to trade up a whole haul of picks to get, because like I don't think they're going to be last in the league this year, obviously, but like if they want to trade up to a whole haul of picks to get Deshaun Watson, be my guest. Go ahead and do that, but don't trade up to second in a year where you don't desperately need a quarterback.
And he's an FCS quarterback who technically isn't proven, even though I like him and I think he played against okay competition. He's still, to most people, the kid has never played against a good, like solid defense.
Right. So, like, that's why they're giving him the time, but, like, which, like, it makes sense to give him time. I wouldn't say throw him right into the fire right away either.
Right.
But at the same time, you only do that if, like, you really desperately need a quarterback solution. And the Eagles always seem to be in need of a quarterback ever since McNabb was gone. But that move still doesn't make sense to me. And I feel like you can just get a quarterback next year. There's always quarterbacks. It wasn't exactly a strong quarterback class.
Yeah, this is probably the weakest of a quarterback class that I can really remember. I mean, obviously we've been blessed with like the Andrew Luck class with RG3 was great, but we've had some good classes. So I guess it sheds a light on this one and makes it a little more obvious that this is a pretty bad class. But still, I don't know. I just don't like. I mean, I do like the move because it hurt the Eagles, in my opinion. But if I was an Eagles fan, I'd kind of hate the move.
Yeah.
But I still think that team's okay. Like they always win games somehow with the worst fans in the universe.
There's no doubt about that. That is 110%.
And that's not even just Eagles fans. That's every Philadelphia fan. Any team, any league, you name it, they suck.
Yeah, Eagles fans are worse than Cowboys fans, and Cowboys fans are awful.
Yeah, but Cowboys fans are just like, I don't know, they get down in the dumps pretty quickly. But like Eagles fans will be miserable, and then they'll just be rude and like, who throws batteries? Like they throw batteries at players and fans. Who throws a battery?
Yeah, I'm a total defeatist about the Cowboys. Like I'm not like, because I know that they're bad all the time. So like I just know that. But I mean, it's probably because I'm a younger Cowboys fan and I didn't see all the Super Bowl.
Right. Yeah, but anyways.
Constantly saying, "Oh, the Eagles are going to be great. Carson Wentz is the savior." Like, relax, man.
Yeah. So, anyways, I'm higher on the Eagles, if you couldn't tell, than Jonah, and I guess I should air quote higher because whatever, they're Philly and I hate them. But I have them at 7 and 9.
I have the Eagles at 6 and 10. They have pieces, but I don't really see them coming together to threaten for a playoff spot this year.
And if you notice, we're in the same area with these teams just because we know how this division works, and somebody is always going to be, like the last place team will be within 2 games of the division, I guarantee it.
Yeah, it does always seem to happen that way with this division.
I don't care how bad the worst team is or how good the best team is, they're going to be relatively close in the final standings, which is so annoying, but whatever. Alright, so you want to do your Redskins?
My Redskins. I don't want to own the Redskins. But
you sure, Dan Snyder?
But yeah, so the Redskins obviously surprised a lot of people by winning the division last year. It surprised pretty much everybody. I mean, if you asked 100 people at the beginning of last year who were not fans of any of the 4 teams who would win the division, maybe one person would have told you the Redskins.
And I bet you 90 of those people would have said they would have finished last.
Right, exactly.
And I'm one of them.
An obvious pick last year, but they surprised a lot of people, and it's primarily because Kirk Cousins finally had, I guess, what you'd call a breakout.
You like that?
I'm a little skeptical still about Cousins, which we'll talk about. But Yeah, there's a lot of talent on this team that broke through last year. I think people kind of underestimated how dynamic their offense could be. And Deshaun Jackson, Pierre Garcon, and Jamison Crowder at wide receiver. And they've added Josh Jackson to that, who hasn't played yet in the preseason, but he's expected to be ready by week 1. So the hope is that will happen. But if that doesn't happen, there's still a lot of talent on this offense. I like their offensive line a good bit, and their defense isn't that either. I like Bashad Breeland. They got Josh Norman, who
sucks.
Right. Neither of us love Josh Norman. You especially don't love Josh Norman. But I think it's fair to say he wasn't entirely a product of the Carolina system. Like, he's a good cornerback. We don't think he's like defensive player of the year material, but he's certainly going to help them. He's certainly better than, Greg Toller, who they would have been starting instead. So I think that's going to help them out in defense. I don't love their front seven, really. I like Ryan Kerrigan, but and who they have up there. So yeah, I think this team got pretty lucky last year. Their schedule is way harder this year than it was last year when they beat the schedule in the league. So I expect them to regress a little bit, but I don't think they're going to fall off a cliff or anything. I think they've established they have some talent.
Yeah, lucky is an understatement for them last year. The Giants lost 9 games in the last minute, and the Cowboys lost 11 games without their quarterback. So, I mean, take that as you will. Yeah, I don't know. I hate Kirk Cousins. I'll tell you right now, he's my least favorite quarterback in the NFL, and that says something because there's 2 quarterbacks in this division I hate, and one of them is Tony Romo. But I hate Kirk Cousins more.
More than Romo?
Well, yeah, I do.
You probably just feel bad for Romo.
He's made a paper. You got to feel bad for the guy. But I think
Breeze will come right over.
Good thing you got that great offensive line to talk about.
I will talk about it.
I think this wide receiving core for the Redskins, it might be one of the better cores in the league. I think Dotson's a superstar. Pierre Garcon's still good. Deshaun Jackson looks better than I've ever seen. I watched a couple of their clips I saw on Twitter or something of him going one-on-one against Josh Norman. And, I mean, he looked great. Like, you can tell that those two are bringing the best out in each other, which is really scary as a Giants fan. But, yeah, Deshaun Jackson, I think he's going to have his best year of his career. And they still have Jamison Crowder, who I love from Duke. He's a really good receiver, and he might not even get a chance to play this year. So they're stacked. I don't think Kirk Cousins can play even half as well as he played last year. And, I mean, the last 9 weeks of the season, he was like the second best quarterback in the NFL by numbers standards, and I don't think he'll be anywhere near that. Running back is a huge problem. Alfred Morris is a really, really, really good underrated running back, and obviously now he's in Dallas, which sucks, let me tell you that. But he leaves the reins to Matt Jones now. Matt Jones is hurt actually currently with a sprained ACL joint. I mean, what is it called? AC joint in your shoulder.
So can't hold on to the football whatsoever.
Correct.
I'm a little worried about that.
And you can tackle him by his dreads, so it makes it a little bit easier. I don't really like Matt Jones. I don't think they have any running backs really whatsoever. So it kind of all comes down to Kirk. Good luck.
I have to watch. Like if I'm a Redskins fan, I'm hoping that Keith Marshall can be that guy.
Who's hurt now also.
There's no doubt. Like, he's had a lot of injury issues. That's the big reason why he fell to the 7th round. But he certainly has the highest ceiling of any really got at running back, especially if Matt Jones continues to not be able to hold on to the football or just be injured.
Yeah, and so I'll kind of talk about the defense at the same time as this, but I was watching, since I'm in Maryland right now, I have to watch the Redskins and Ravens. Whoop-de-freaking-do. I think I'd rather be anywhere else. But they just played against the Bills, and Ryan Kerrigan got hurt, and they're not really sure how long he's going to be out. And Keith Marshall just got hurt also. And then they lost the offensive lineman and a kick returner. But Kerrigan's a huge injury. If he does have anything wrong where he's going to miss a significant amount of time, their defense immediately drops to the bottom of the league. I mean, he's probably the best player on that team. So he's really, in my opinion, he's all they have on the D line, even though I guess he's an outside linebacker. They did draft Sua Cravens, which literally pains me to talk about because I think he's just going to be really good. And you can already, you can already tell. Like, I mean, just watching the preseason games, the dude flies all over the field, makes plays left and right. He's just always around the ball. He's a really, really, really good linebacker. So I really like their linebackers. Obviously, it's documented how I feel about Josh Norman. I've heard Bashaud Breeland is much better this year than he was last year, and I think it has something to do with Josh Norman, just because Breeland's trying to bring up his level to match Josh Norman. But they also have Fuller, who they drafted, who I think is really good. He actually had an interception last night. And so I think their secondary is going to be a lot better. And their secondary is always kind of a fault. I believe they're going to run D'Angelo Hall out at free safety. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, I think that's what they're trying to do.
Yeah, so that's going to be interesting just because he's such a ball hawk. That's really scary to throw over the top of that defense. I mean, Josh Norman on the same side as D'Angelo Hall could cause some serious problems for quarterbacks. Luckily, the Giants have the best quarterback ever. Haha. But yeah, their secondary is better. Their defense, I think it's worse overall than it was last year, just because I think that front seven took a little bit of a hit, and I think their offense is going to be a little bit worse since they lost Alfred Morris. But yeah, unfortunately, I still have the Redskins having a winning record, and I have them at 9-7.
Yeah, I have the Redskins at 8-8. There's definitely stuff I like with this team, but I think they'll take a step back because I think Cousins won't be as good, and I think that their schedule is much tougher. So even if Josh Doxson ends up making a big impact, even if Josh Norman ends up making a big impact, both of which I can definitely see happening, I think just regression at quarterback and a harder schedule are going to make their record worse than last year.
Yeah, and also first matchup of Odell and Josh Norman will be week 3. So as Terrell Owens once said, get your popcorn ready.
Mark your calendars.
Yes, please. So let's do it. It's time. The Dallas Cowboys are on the clock.
Yeah. Okay. So
take a breath.
I'm one Dallas Cowboys fan. There's been times, especially recently, where I have deeply questioned that to the point where some people question their faith in God. It's really a spiritual experience for me. God has been sort of vengeful with me with the Cowboys.
Jonah has actively been shopping a new team. If anyone has any ideas for him, please send them his way.
My only option right now is the Jets, and it's just not good in any way for me right now. I mean, this organization, just to get that out of the way before we start talking about the team, the organization is completely reprehensible, and there's nothing good about it, and I root for this team completely in spite of the organization and Jerry Jones, who's against everything I stand for. Now that we got that out of the way, we're talking about roster limit, because I do like some players on this team, actually, and it's not their fault that their owner's awful. Obviously, we'll start at quarterback. The news came in yesterday that Tony Romo in his preseason game against the Seahawks on, I believe it was Friday night.
Yeah, I think so.
Fractured a vertebrae, a different one from last year actually, on a hit by Cliff Averill, and he's going to be out 6 to 10 weeks, which means the reins at quarterback are more than likely going to be handed over to Dak Prescott, who was their 4th round pick this year out of Mississippi State. Now, he's a guy that I like quite a bit. I know you actually like him quite a bit as well.
I love him, yeah.
And he's been really great in the preseason. Obviously, it's preseason, so there's a huge caveat there. But I think their offense won't take a huge step down with Prescott and quarterback instead of Romo, especially if Romo is going to be hobbled anyway. So I'm not terribly upset with the news about Romo, because I think Prescott will be good. He's been very good. He's been taking snaps with the first team. So I'm confident there. Their offensive line obviously is terrific. I think even Zach would agree. I know he thinks I talk about it too much, but his offensive line is pretty damn good.
Yes, Cowboys' offensive line is great.
Yeah. But, I mean, with a lot of investment in the line, Tyron Smith, Travis Frederick, Zach Martin, all first-round picks on the offensive line. We built our offensive line from the team's biggest weakness into its biggest strength.
Just replay the Giants-Cowboys game last year, and you'll see Tony Romo literally stand in the pocket for like 9.5 seconds before he even cares to throw the football.
Right, which is why I was optimistic about Romo maybe not getting hurt this year.
Yeah, but then he took 16 snaps.
When he did a king sit-up slide in baseball.
And, okay, just to clarify, he took 16 snaps this preseason, and one of them he gets injured for at least 2 months. I mean, come on.
And the guy forgot how to slide. If he just slid like a normal person, then April wouldn't have hit him in the back.
And the people that say that's a cheap shot need to watch more football.
Wasn't it? It was a horrible slide. But anyway, they still have Des Bryant,
Who?
Whose opinion's certainly different. I think he's no prime Calvin Johnson. He's not as good as Odell Beckham. But
hey, this is recorded, you know.
No, right? But he's still really good, I think. And obviously the running game, I think, is going to really raise the floor of this offense just because I think that it was awesome last year. Darren McFadden, of all people, was the 4th leading rusher in the NFL last year.
And now he's your third-string running back.
Right, and now he's the third-string running back behind Alfred Morris and Ezekiel Elliott, who I absolutely love. I would probably take a bullet for Ezekiel Elliott, despite being from Ohio State. I think their running game is going to be awesome. One of the top 5 in the league for sure. So I think their offense is a pretty high floor. I'm pretty confident in their offense. Their defense is a completely different story.
They have one of those?
Yeah, apparently. I'm looking at a whole depth chart for it and everything. So apparently they have some defensive players. But look, I've tried hard to talk myself into this defense. There's pieces on here that I like. Sean Lee, if he can stay healthy, like when he has been healthy, he's doing one of the best interior linebackers in the league.
Yeah, but he's played like 10 games in the last 6 years.
Yeah, I know. Like, I'm trying to give myself a few good things here. I like the interior of the line. Tyrone Crawford solid. Cedric Thornton, they signed from the Eagles. They drafted Malik Collins. So I think the interior of their line is going to be good. I think they'll be able to stop the run pretty well. In terms of stopping the pass, though, I don't see how they're going to do that at all. They have one decent corner in Orlando Scandrick. Brandon Carr is like mediocre to bad, and Morris Claiborne is just, I don't know, he's just Morris Claiborne.
Just don't go there.
I feel about him the way he felt about Ruben Randall. Like, I want him off this team completely and out of my life forever. I do like Byron Jones at free safety. He was drafted as a corner, but he played very well in safety last year, and if he stays there, I think he'll be solid there. But, I mean, we're talking about a few decent pieces on this defense. Like, I think their offense is going to be really good. I legitimately think that, even without Romo. But I think with how bad this defense is, I don't really see how they can make the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, this team has crazy running back depth, and you already talked about it, but that's something that it literally jumps out of the page at me. Like, to look at this team and see Alfred Morris, who I think could be the leading rusher in the NFL if he was a starting running back on this team, to be second behind Ezekiel Elliott is like a travesty. And then to see the 4th leading rusher last year be 3rd on that depth chart, it's nuts. I mean, they legitimately could have 3 Pro Bowl running backs on the roster at the same time. It's kind of crazy.
Trade for 2 of your defensive players.
I don't know. We already have 7 running backs. We can't choose which one we want to use anyways. So might as well just get more and freaking give them all the ball. But yeah. So when I was like looking at this roster for offense, I said crazy depth at running back. Do they have enough depth at wide receiver? Which I don't think you do. I think Des Bryant is good. That's very obvious to tell. I am still not a believer in Terrence Williams, though. I think he has the talent to be good. I just don't think he wants to be that good. I don't know how you feel about that, though.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of Terrence Williams either. Cole Beasley's a solid third receiver. But
absolutely, yeah.
Like, he's just better in that slot.
Like, yeah, he's Wes Welker all over again.
poor man's Wes Welker, which is fine. Like, any team would be happy to have a guy like
Oh
that.
yeah, hell yeah. He's good. There's no doubt about that.
And, like, I think this offensive ceiling certainly depends on, I think, two people, Terrence Williams and Dak Prescott. If Prescott can be as good as he was in the preseason, in the regular season, and Terrence Williams can take a step forward to where he's a legit number 2 receiver, I think this offense could be a top 10 offense.
Yeah, I mean, currently in the preseason, Dak Prescott has more touchdowns than incompletions, which is 5 touchdowns to 4 incompletions.
Yeah, he's on freaking fire, and if he can hook up well with these receivers, and with the running game how we both expect it to be, this could be a top 5 offense, certainly ceiling-wise.
Right.
Obviously, there's some variables there. I just think the defense really lowers the ceiling of the team. I kind of feel like I like the Cowboys' offense more than I like the Saints' offense, but I feel similarly in terms of their defense is holding them back from being a really good team.
Yeah, you feel exactly how I felt last year with the Giants. The offense jumped out the page, looked like it should be great, and then you have the defense who couldn't stop a nosebleed and just gives up 50 points, and you don't know how to beat that.
Right. There's going to be a lot of shootouts with this team, and the problem is it depends so much on the passing game, because if they get behind, they're not going to be able to use that dominant running game.
Right.
Which is what happened last year. Like, they had a phenomenal running game last year, too. They just couldn't use it because they were constantly falling behind too early.
Right.
And I think that will improve this year just because even with Prescott at quarterback, he's certainly better than, Brandon Weeden and Kellen Moore, who they were rolling out, and Matt Castle and whoever.
Hey, maybe you can trade for Jake Rudock to be your backup right now. I'm sure Jerry Jones could.
I saw his notification this morning where Dan Graziano was saying, like, possible veteran guy if the Cowboys might sign. The 2 first names on the list, Michael Vick, Mark Sanchez.
Oh.
So, like, it's safe to say that, like, I'm on the verge of death here.
I joked earlier about Matt Prater starting ahead of Jake Rudock. I legitimately think that Dan Bailey might be the second best option at quarterback for you right now.
Yeah, I don't doubt it. I mean, the rest of our depth starts Kellen Moore, who's hurt, and Jameel Showers.
Who?
So,
who is that?
Jameel Showers. I've heard of him only starting this year.
What the
He's
hell?
our draft free agent at UTEP.
Okay, there you go. There's a good team for you.
Yeah, so.
But yeah, so on a serious note, though, the thing that I'm worried about with Dak Prescott, I like Dak Prescott. Jonah said it. I said it. I think he's a good quarterback. But preseason is a little bit different, obviously, than the regular season. Defenses rarely show the looks that they're going to give you in the regular season. They don't really disguise their defenses. They kind of just put the play out there and see how they look running the play. Then when the regular season comes, they're going to disguise it. They're going to change coverages. They're going to audible. They're going to do all that stuff. So for me, in college, Dak Prescott, it took him. He was a little bit slow reading the defenses, in my opinion. It takes him a step longer to recognize things than you'd like your quarterback to have. Granted, he's still a good quarterback. So that scares me a little bit. But obviously that offensive line that Dallas has can kind of offset that, so it gives him that extra second to read the defense, which I think will be huge for him. I think Dallas is really one of the only spots that he could have flourished, and now he's going to get the chance.
Right. In that situation, you could possibly put a rookie quarterback in pretty much.
Right, because he has such a good running game and has an offensive line that's going to keep him upright for the majority of the time, even though for some reason Tony Romo can't use that to his benefit, whatever. But yeah, I don't even need to talk about the defense. I mean, you hit every nail on the head. I couldn't even name their defensive ends, and I watch them play all the time.
Right now, the guys on the depth chart are Ryan Russell and David Irving.
We play you twice a year, and I've never heard of either of those players.
Well, it's because DeMarcus Lawrence is suspended, and Randy Gregory just didn't report. And so...
Oh, he forgot. He was too high on marijuana.
I know. I was so excited when we drafted them. Like, those guys always slip through. Like, they always end up being good. I forgot that you need a decent organizational culture for those guys.
Jonah has such the Raiders kind of take on it. Like, they would win a title once Al Davis died, and, like, now we're just waiting for Jerry Jones to pass on so that they can win a title.
I really am. Yeah, like anytime someone wants to like poison Jerry Jones' drink. Like, I'm not saying I condone it, but like, you know.
But you wouldn't be mad.
No, not even a little.
Yeah. So defensive team, not even a little. I mean, they're not good on the defensive end. Yeah, Byron Jones is like the only player I like on this defense. But I mean, the Cowboys somehow find a way to like overall be 8-8 all the time. Like last year they went 4-12, and the year before they went 12-4, which offsets to 8-8.
And the previous 3 years before that they were 8-8 in all three.
Right. So naturally they'll be 8-8 or find a way to be somewhere near 8-8, which is what I have them at. So still I have you ahead of the Eagles. Bravo. But I don't like this team to make the playoffs even in the slightest. And actually, just to qualify before Jonah makes his record prediction, it took Jonah almost a week to talk himself into the team, and then as soon as he talked himself into it, Tony Romo's out for 2 months.
Right, and it kind of, shook me out of my trance for a little bit.
For the better.
But yeah, I'm at the Cowboys at 7-9. I'm actually a little bit lower on them than you are even. I also have them ahead of the Eagles. But I just think with the defense the way it is, they're just not as good as the Redskins or the Giants this year. Like I think in their next draft they should spend literally every pick on the defense and just they just need an infusion of defensive talent. If Prescott can be the guy, the rest of their offense is young enough that they can keep this offensive core for a long time. But in terms of that defense, they just need so much help, and they're just not there yet.
Hey, we just spent $200 million in the offseason to get a good defense. You can do the same damn thing.
We could.
We went from worst to, at least recognizable. So speaking of the devil.
At least mediocre to good now.
Yeah. But last thing about the Cowboys, it's going to be really interesting to see what happens if Prescott plays well, to see what happens when Romo's healthy, to see if he comes back to be the starter, to see if they're going to ride with Prescott. I'm interested to see how that works out. Obviously, if they play bad with Prescott, Romo's going to walk right into the job. But if they go, 5-1, 4-2, something like that, it's going to be intriguing to see what's going to happen. So let's get to the last team of the NFL preview. And Jonah was kind enough to leave it to be the Giants. So it's obviously documented I'm a Giants fan. This is the first year in my 20-year history of remembering Giants that they've actually spent money in the offseason on players not on their roster already. Spent $200 million to get a defense, basically, which to me, I think it worked pretty well. But we're going to start with the offense. So running back wise, last year they went by a running back by committee kind of deal. Rashad Jennings is going to get the start this year. He got the start last year. He really performed well in the last month of the season, and I think they realized they can't do the running back by committee because it doesn't give any running back a chance to actually get the flow of the game. So I think that this year they will go away from that. Rashad Jennings will get the ball and play well with Shane Vereen as a third down back and receiving option out of the backfield. We really didn't use him right at all last year after he came over from the Patriots, so hopefully they can figure it out this year. I think McAdoo has a good idea for that. Receiving weapons, I think we went from basically just having Odell to now we have Odell, Victor Cruz, who is healthy, knock on wood for the time being, and Sterling Shepard, who Jonah likes, I like. I think he's going to be really good. But also our tight ends are extremely athletic. Will Tye from Stony Brook played pretty well last year. Larry Donnell was hurt, but he's back now, and he looks really probably better than ever. They also drafted a 6'7" tight end out of South Carolina, Jarrell Adams. Looked like originally he was going to be on the roster, just inactive for games. Now he looks like he could be a serious contributor to the offense. So there's a lot of depth at tight end, which is very good for this team because Eli likes to throw to tight ends. So this will be the first time in 32 teams that I've talked about the offensive line, but it's well documented the Giants don't have a good half of the offensive line. So left side, I like the left side. I think Eric Flowers is going to be good. I know he was by ratings pretty poor last year. But watching all the games, I really never was like, wow, Eric Flowers, you're terrible. I mean, he didn't like jump out at me as being bad. I think Justin Pugh is going to be a strong offensive lineman forever. Weston Richburg has obviously been a really good center. Should have made the Pro Bowl last year. He's been that good. The right side is a joke. John Jerry and Marshall Newhouse. Marshall Newhouse is the worst tackle I've ever seen in my life. John Jerry is a perennial backup. And then, speaking of backups, we have Bobby Hart, who never has played against a serious defensive lineman in his life behind those two guys. So there's no one to put in on the right side. And we didn't address it in free agency. We didn't address it in the draft. We still haven't addressed it through trades. So I really don't know what they're seeing. But if you watch the 3 preseason games, it's been extremely noticeable that that right side cannot hold up. Eli's been getting hit. He's been getting pressured. You can't run to the right side. So you obviously know you can blitz the left side because that's where the run's coming from. So it's been a train wreck. I don't really know how we did it last year with that right side of the line, but Eli actually had his best statistical year really ever. But yeah, I think their offense is going to be good. I think there's a lot of weapons. They just got to figure out how to solve the offensive line, which is obviously a lot bigger issue than not making it. But defensively, they did a lot. So I think the D-line has 4 Pro Bowl caliber players. JPP, Olivier Vernon on the ends, rushing. And then Snacks Harrison, who they got from the Jets, was the #1 rated defensive lineman against the run last year. And then Jonathan Hankins is really, really, really good. Nobody knows about him, but he's really good. Their linebackers, Jonah cannot stand our linebackers. He thinks they're terrible. I think they're okay.
Why do you never put me on your linebackers? It bothers me.
I know. And also, Jonathan Casillas broke a rib last night, so that's a serious problem. But
Yeah.
we did draft B.J. Goodson from Clemson, who looks like he might actually get the start at middle linebacker. And Devon Kennard is healthy, should be an edge rusher, and also play strong side linebacker. Jasper Brinkley played okay. Honestly, there are a lot of no-name guys, and I completely understand the skepticism around that. But I think that they can at least be hidden now with this defense. Like they're obviously not that great, but they're good enough that they can hold their own, and being surrounded by a great defense makes it a lot easier on them. But the secondary is really where I think the Giants hit it out of the ballpark this year. We went from Dominique Rodgers-Cromartie and Prince Mukamara with no safeties whatsoever. Well, Landon Collins, but he's not really a safety. He's more of like a linebacker. We took that to go to DRC. Janoris Jenkins signed Leon Hall, and we still have to figure out the free safety position. Looks like it's going to be Darian Thompson, a rookie from Boise State, who's been really good. He's a ball hawk. Huh?
You didn't mention Eli Apple.
I know, I didn't get there yet.
Oh, okay.
I want to save it for you, kinda, since you know how much I love him. Yeah, so Eli Apple. It's kind of it's been difficult to decide where they're going to start these corners because none of them have played the slot before. Eli Apple really, I don't know. He's not that great at the nickel position. He's never played it, I guess, is why he's not that great. So it looks like they're going to have to put him on the outside. And he played Eric Decker last night, and he played him pretty well. I mean, he had 2 passes defended, didn't give up that much from him. So that's okay. Janoris Jenkins is just such a ball hawk, and he needs to play the outside. So it's looking like DRC is going to be our nickel corner. I don't know how I feel about that just because of how good he was last year on the outside. Kind of scares me, but I guess it's a good problem to have that you have 3 corners, and if you add Leon Hall, you really have 4 that can all play the position. Leon Hall looks like he might play a little bit of a hybrid safety role also for us, so I don't mind that. But yeah, I think this team last year they lost 9 games in the last minute of the game. I mean, we finished an abysmal record for that. I mean, we could have easily been 11-5 if you just take 3 of those games, 4 of those games, and give them to us. But I think this team's pretty good this year at least.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely plugged a lot of your holes from last year. There's no doubt about that. You didn't plug all of them, which I'll get to, but like you certainly did as good a job as you could ask for, because there were a lot of holes last year.
Oh, there's a ton. The defense was just holes everywhere. I mean, literally everywhere.
Right, and so, I mean, just on offense more briefly, I think the left side of your line is fine. I don't like Flowers as much as you do, but I think Justin Pugh and Weston Richburg are very solid. I can't emphasize enough how much John Jerry and Marshall Newhouse are going to get ripped to shreds.
And how much they should not be a starting duo on the right side of any line in any team.
No, I mean, like, I think you guys will have a solid season, but I think that's part of the reason I don't see you advancing that far in the playoffs is, like, I just think Eli's not going to really have a lot of time to throw. I mean, obviously, Odell Beckham kind of makes that a little bit less necessary, and I did like the Sterling Shepard pick a lot. He was a guy I liked, and I was hoping the Cowboys might get. But yeah, I mean, Eli never gets hurt. Knock on
Damn
wood.
it! Why'd you have to say that?
I knocked on wood. It's fine. But so I think you're not like I think your floor is pretty high for this offense. Also, it doesn't look like a super dynamic offense outside of Beckham, like, especially with the scheme you're running, it's pretty vanilla.
Yeah, but it worked for us last year.
Oh, yeah, I mean, it should work as long as Beckham and Eli are healthy, because that connection was just so good.
Right.
But, yeah, I mean, I think you're not going to take all people by surprise on offense. On defense, though, the Giants really did a great job of plugging their holes. Olivier Vernon is a big upgrade over Robert Ayers, even if he's not going to be, you know, like Lawrence Taylor over there.
Right.
I think he's been pretty solid.
He's also 25 years old, so we can have him on the team for a really long time.
Right, he has room to improve still, too. I mean,
Exactly.
Harrison was positioning. You hope Jason Pierre-Paul with his, how many fingers does he have?
It's fixed, okay? He has 3 on the one hand. Well, it's like 3.5. But he's wearing a glove this year, so like he actually can use his hand. It's not that stupid club where he just like smacks you with it and just hopes you fall over.
Right. It was just really hard for him to get around tackles that way because he just couldn't grab with that.
Exactly.
So if that's better this year, then he should be fine. We'll see if, you know, fingerless wonder can get some sacks this year.
I'll just wait till Dak Prescott's on his ass because of JPP.
I mean, I don't know. We'll see if he can get around Tyron Smith, but
he's on the other side now. They moved Olivier Vernon to.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, so he faces the worst tackles now, so it's fine. He's been going up against Marshall Newhouse, and he's been dominating. He's obviously a superstar.
Yeah, I was gonna say I think I could probably get around Marshall Newhouse pretty easily, but yeah, I think their linebacker core is pretty weak, especially if Casillas is hurt. I think B.J. Goodson could be solid, but Jasper Brinkley's getting up there in years and has never been great anyway. Starting Devin Kennard, I think, is strong side linebacker, who's fine. I mean, you've just been relying a lot on, like, Mark Herzlich and Keenan Robinson and stuff, which, like, you can do, but it just mystifies me always why the Giants never spend money on their linebackers. I mean, it hasn't that, like, I don't know, I just think that it's a problem on your defense if, like, you're a signal caller. Like, if you're starting B.J. Goodson and middle linebacker to start the year, I don't love the idea of starting a rookie there. I mean, I'm picking at smallish things here. It's not
No, you're right though.
But yeah, I mean, and in the secondary, I think they'll do a better job covering people than they did last year. I think what you have with your corners is you have a lot of ball hawking guys that aren't necessarily great cover corners, which isn't necessarily a problem because you need both things.
Right.
And if you just have a really good ball hawking defense, then that's gonna like you're gonna have games where you pick off the other quarterback 4 times. It'll probably happen against Kirk Cousins, and you're gonna love it.
Yeah, and we're also gonna get torched a lot though because of that.
Right. So, but then the fact that like this isn't a great set of cover guys in the backfield is gonna present problems against teams with like multiple solid receivers, because Janoris Jenkins obviously is a ball hawk, like you said. He's going to get some picks. He's going to get 5 or 6 interceptions over the course of the season, but he doesn't have a reputation as a guy who will stick to the other guy's best receiver like glue.
Right.
And it's the sort of thing with Landon Collins. He's more of a big hitting safety than a cover safety.
Right.
a lot of talent on this defense, but like in the backfield. But I think he will struggle at times to cover people.
Yep.
Obviously, you can have bigger concerns than these, but
I mean, based off the concerns from last year, these are like I take this over anything.
Like you'd rather be concerned about these things than what you had last year.
Right.
Sure. But they're still not nothing, which is why I don't see them going far in the playoffs. But I do think that they will make the playoffs. I think their defense is sufficiently improved, and their offense should be pretty much as good as it was last year. If they can figure out just like a lead bell cow back, if Shane Ring gets that together, I think that'd be your best option. Like, I'm not sure that will necessarily happen, but I've always liked him a lot.
Yeah, me too.
So, yeah, I mean, it'll depend on some stuff. If Josh Brown,
oh, you had to go there.
and he's been a pretty good kicker, but he's been hasn't just been hitting uprights lately.
Oh my God. Go ask Greg Hardy about that.
Yeah, well, right. Well, yeah, like I said.
Yeah, I got a good idea. We'll trade Josh Brown to you, and we'll take Dan Bailey. How's that work?
I mean, I said if the Cowboys signed Greg Hardy again, I would literally not be a Cowboys fan ever again. And they haven't yet, but I'm not ruling it out, considering who their defensive ends are.
Yeah, seriously.
But, yeah, I mean, you signed Randy Bullock, I believe.
Yeah, but the kicker that we had that was like supposed to be competing with Josh Brown, once I suspended Josh Brown, we took him out of the preseason game. So they put this new kicker in, and his first kick, he missed a 29-yard field goal, and it wasn't even close, and he got cut already. So now it's Randy Bullock's job to have.
Yeah, so like that's not a huge problem. Obviously, we've talked pretty rarely about kickers on this podcast, besides Roberto Aguayo.
Yeah, seriously.
So, I mean, you could have worse issues, but like if your games are close, you want to have a good kicker, and Josh Brown might not be a guy who's around for longer. If you can consider yourself a better organization than the Cowboys, which like organization is a better organization than the Cowboys, but might want to take some action there. That's on the league as well, obviously, not just the team.
Right. But, yeah. Apparently, if it doesn't have a TMZ video, it doesn't get noticed.
Right. Exactly. It's like the whole Ray Rice thing. But just in terms of talent on this team, it's really significantly improved from last year. I'm not going to deny that, even as a Cowboys fan.
Yeah, so before we give our records, just to touch on that linebacker a little bit. So the Giants haven't drafted a linebacker since, Lawrence Taylor. That has been quite a long time, in case you guys don't know. That's 20-something years. So obviously Jonah knows extremely a lot about this, but Miles Jack was on the board when we were drafting, and I was almost certain he was going to be a Giant once I saw him on the board, and that was obviously a lot of me just hoping that we would take him. So we didn't. Yeah, I was crushed when we didn't. And to take Eli Apple.
That 2 minutes for you had to be insane.
Yes, it was rough. And we also reached with Eli Apple. It seems like it's working out so far. We'll see. But, so yeah, we don't address the linebacker position until I think Goodson was a 6th rounder. So to start, it was either 4th or 6th. I'm sorry, I don't remember which one. But to have him starting middle linebacker be taken that late and be a rookie could scare a lot of people. It scares me, I won't lie. But my biggest thing with this linebacking core is in the past, we've had no depth whatsoever at linebackers. Like last year, John Beeson was supposed to be our starting middle linebacker. He gets hurt immediately, and we just have, you might as well just plug in an offensive player at that position because we have nobody left. Now we have Kelvin Shepard, we have Keenan Robinson, we have Brinkley, Casillas, Kennard, Goodson. I mean, there's 6 or 7 guys now that can play the linebacker position, which I think is huge because we always get hurt in that position. So at least now there's someone that can fill the role when someone goes down, which, I mean, you at least have a resemblance of someone who has played the linebacker position before. There's a good chance Mark Herzlich won't get any snaps on the defensive side, and if that happens, I will be thrilled. But yeah, I mean, I like the Giants this year a lot more than last year. Obviously, most fans of of teams have their team going 10-6. So shocker, I have the Giants going 10-6 and win the division. But there's more. I think this team. I think they're gonna make the playoffs. If they don't make the playoffs, it's a really bad year. Like, that's a waste of $200 million if you don't make the playoffs. But we'll talk about this later on at some point. Like next week, we'll probably talk all about the NFL again, just because it's 1 week before the season. But I seriously think the Giants have a chance to at least get to the NFC title game. I know that's a lot of good teams to go through, but I think the talent on the team, and I think how good this defense can be, potentially, gives the Giants a lot of room to be successful this year.
Yeah, I also have the Giants at 10-6. I think I think they're definitely significantly improved from last year. Just looking up and down this division, these rosters have a lot in common, and that there's a lot of really, really good players in this division on all 4 teams. But there's just a lot of big holes also in the division. Like, you look at the Redskins, possibility with their running game and their front seven. You look at the Cowboys' entire defense. You look at a lot of the Eagles' offense. You look at some spots on the Giants, too, at the right side of their line. I just think the Giants have the fewest holes of anybody in this division, and that's why I think they're going to win it.
Yeah, so that would wrap up our NFL. We have in the NFC East, we both have the Giants winning at 10-6. In the NFC North, we have the Packers winning at 12-4, and we have the Vikings making it out of the wild card.
And the same for the NFC after all that.
Yeah, right. Panthers, and then Seahawks and Cardinals. I think you originally picked the Seahawks to win the division, though, right?
I just had Arizona winning just based on the fact that they get the Patriots.
Oh, right. Yeah, without Tom Brady, that's right. Yeah, so you want to just go through like our seeding? So I would have Cardinals at 1, and then the Panthers and Packers tied for the 2 seed. I will give that to the Panthers just for giggles. So that'd be Packers at the 3, Eagles, yeah, right. Oh, wow, I caught myself there. Giants at the 4, and then for the wild cards, the Vikings would be the 5 seed, and the Seahawks would be the 6 seed, which would set up a Giants-Vikings playoff matchup, which I wouldn't be too mad about.
Yeah, the way I have it, I have Carolina's the 1, Green Bay is the 2, Arizona's the 3, the Giants are the 4, Seattle would be 5, and Minnesota 6. Which would set up the Giants and Seattle.
Oh, good.
Go to Arizona.
Woohoo.
Yeah,
so I think the NFC has a lot of good teams. I think the championship will be won by an NFC team this year. I just think the teams are that much better.
Yeah.
So that wraps up the NFL preview. Next week we will, instead of just talking teams, we will probably give you some playoff predictions and pick a winner and talk about some issues and that kind of good stuff. And then as of today, we are 2 Sundays away from football. So.
And we may even do some college football next week if you're lucky.
Yeah, there you go. Saturday the 3rd is the opening kickoff. So thanks for listening, and we will see you back here next week.